Now I'd like to focus the conversation on what it means to you. I am saying that California moved to become the diplomatic negotiation center for the world for the next 100 years, and that we are the only ones who could do it, and that we become fabulously wealthy if we do this, and that we have no plans on how to get it out of the recession anyways. But let me take it a step further. I don't know if you can see this. This is supposed to look like a cow. These are ribs sticking out of this cow. You may have heard California, the happy cow. I want you to picture a sickly cow. One whose ribs are showing. One whose bones are showing. Cow doesn't know it's sick. Farmer milks this cow and does not care that the cow is sick. Farmers milk this cow for 30 years. This is going on. You lose $120 billion every single year in extra federal income taxes that you get absolutely nothing for. You pay federal income taxes, it pays for military, security, etc. And then there's $120 billion left over. That goes in grants from DC to pay for roads, bridges, schools, dams, airports, and seaports in 35 other states, who, according to the federal government, already have roads, bridges, dams, seaports, airports, levees better than you. Type in California, worst of. The federal government rates every single piece of infrastructure in this entire state worst in all of America. And yet for 30 years, you have paid for 35 other states to continue to have all of these things better than you. We have bridge segments that fall on people and kill them. And then they get $100 million for a brand new road in Missouri. That's your money. It's $120 billion, comes out of you. You've been milked for 30 years. It's never been changed. Guess what's going to happen in 30 years from now? Your grandkids are going to be here, and somebody else is going to be saying, did you know you've been milked for this long and you're not getting any money? Because it's never changed. But it gets worse. Because for the federal income taxes that you do pay and that you are supposed to get services for, you really don't. Border security is a concern of every government on the planet. You pay 2 times the taxes. You pay once federal income taxes for border security. It doesn't really come. And then they dip into the state money to pay for extra border security so we have the amount we need. This has gone on for 30 years. But you still pay, so that's 200% tax. It gets better. Did you guys know that for 5 years after 9/11, you never got your 9/11 security money? Homeland Security Director Michael Chertoff, when he retired, said that California was the most vulnerable spot in all of America to a terrorist attack. And yet for 5 years after 9/11, you got zip. Do you know who actually protected your national security? You did. Truckers had to pay an extra tax for all containers that came through seaports and airports of $30, which meant goods in this local economy went up. So now you paid more so that you could have the nuclear radiation scanners at seaports that the federal government was supposed to provide and never did. That's documented. By the way, don't believe anything I say. Don't believe a word I say. I have 250 citations in the book. It's all there. But it gets worse. Every season that there's forest fires, that's a national emergency. Every government on the planet is supposed to take care of that. Do you know who does? You do. Yeah. Governor Schwarzenegger doesn't even bother, or didn't, going to the federal government asking for helicopters when we have fire season. Every year we have fire season. Hundreds of people die or lose their homes. I think 2 years ago we lost about 500 homes and 5 people were burned alive. Federal government doesn't care. You pay federal income taxes, it's supposed to go to national emergencies like what happened in New Orleans and like what happened in New Jersey, and you get nothing. Then they dip into the state income tax, and Schwarzenegger pays other states money from your state budget for helicopters to back us up because the feds will give us nothing. And it gets even worse. You don't get your border security, you don't get your national security, you also pay for environmental clearance and insurance clearance and retirement. All of those things are regulated by California. So you pay for the federal government to regulate them. They don't, the state does, because the feds already gave up control. So you are, A, losing $120 billion every year, which is the equivalent to 1 state budget. By that I mean the extra federal income tax that you lose is equivalent to your state income tax. So the amount of money you are wasting is equivalent to the state income tax you pay every year. And you pay double tax on things that every government in the world considers their basic responsibility. This has gone on for 30 years. We make a shift, we make a change, we become super wealthy, and we stop fiscal insanity. And then you don't have to worry about trash scams and furloughs because your jobs are secure, because the economy is secure, because we have a plan forward. I'll stop and turn it over to questions.
What's your background? What do you do now? And are you running for governor or what?
You have a flyer in front of you.
I don't have a flyer.
I'll get you one. I'll get you one. I do not have a particular background in foreign policy or economics. I have spent 6 years of my life studying this particular subject. That's why I say don't believe me. Read the book. By the way, I've had positive book reviews from San Francisco Book Review, Midwest Book Review, Californiality, foreign policy scholar James Goldsboro, and Michael Dukakis has recently agreed to review the book. Plus, the book is also reviewed at 4 different think tanks, the Independent Institute, Claremont Institute, USC Foreign Policy School, and the Milken Institute. So other people are already picking up on this. Yes, I'm independent. It's being validated. Yes?
I'm not quite sure I heard how we're going to change this. Are we asking for our federal monies to stay in California, or I'm not sure I got that part.
Yeah, so the plan is that you do a couple things. You don't pay for things that you don't get services for. And you pay for services locally that you do use. So when you pay taxes, they're filed here, sent to Washington, D.C., organized there, distributed back to the states and sent back. That's a waste of money. You tax locally, you spend locally. You have more money going into the pot. And this would require a radical change in our government. This is the part that's the controversial part. So, Scotland, in the last 5 years, has gone from effectively a colony of England, where everything was decided in London, to almost independent. What they did was what they call subnational sovereignty. The military and the dollar stayed intact. Scottish boys and girls have fought underneath the Brits in Afghanistan, and they still use the British pound. But immigration, banking, education returned to Holyrood, the capital of Scotland. This happened in the last 5 years. I'll get you in just a second. And it happened with a series of votes. The worst thing that happened in Scotland was harsh language. The Prime Minister of England said, "This will destroy England." Well, that was 5 years ago. England's still there. Intermarriage rates between Scotland and England have gone up, even though they've technically legally pulled apart. The economies have both become more integrated, and the Scottish economy has risen up. We would look at that model, because 22 other nations around the planet have this exact same form of government. They're all democratic, they all have rising economies, and they are in control of most of their destiny. Now, we keep the key parts intact. The dollar and the military does not change at all. Business contracts completely the same. But now you have the ability to control your border security, your immigration, your education, and everything else. One of the great things about the Scottish system is, do you remember the recession? Well, who doesn't? Yeah, the current recession. So you had people giving out bad home loans, and then somebody took those home loans, packaged them as something, put a new name on it, and sold it to somebody else who didn't know what they were buying. You can't stop that. And nobody in America has gone to prison for that, and nobody in America is going to go to prison for that. In Scotland, although they do not have control over their dollar, you go to federal prison if you play games like that. So no, you don't have complete control. This keeps us part of the family, yet gives us the freedom to make the moves to become the world diplomatic center and stop being milked financially. And while I know that's radical, I want you to think about something. 30 years of living in third world status. Look at your schools, look at the bridges, look at the dams. Type in California, worst stuff. Don't take my word for it. The federal government rates all infrastructure in this state worst in America. It has been that way for 30 years. It's not going to change because this farmer does not care that this cow's sick. Cow pumps out milk. It's going to keep going. This will not change. If you don't do this, it's still going to stay this way. It'll stay this way in the next 10 years, the next 20 years, the next 30 years. So Make a change and save yourselves or suffer. Yeah, you were next.
Okay, how do you propose that you just pay for the services that's used from the federal government and not pay for those when you file your taxes?
Right.
How are you going to prevent that from happening?
We would move to a subnationally sovereign government where the military and the dollar are intact. We would pay for those services. We would pay extra for those services, but we would not pay for anything else. Those services would come out of state income taxes and they would be used here, which means you're not paying to move taxes over to DC, file them, process them, have them come back here, have somebody sort them and reprocess them. You can cut out that cost, and democracy works best closest to the source. Better democracy, more money, less taxes. That's how we do it. We look at the Scottish model that they've done in the last 5 years. Yes, please.
Who's we?
Californians.
Okay, and how are we going to get California government on board?
On the flyer, it talks about an initiative. Other people who have heard the speech at 30 different California cities are making a nonprofit corporation right now. They are going to put it on the initiative and they're going to attempt to put it on the ballot so that we can draw more attention to this issue, get more Californians aware of what they're losing and how they're being milked, and hopefully we can make the initiative designed so that it would directly force the legislature to look into this plan. He was next, and then someone back there.
Marcus, is
Yeah.
it Marcus or Marcos?
Whatever.
Whatever?
Yeah.
Okay, whatever. Did you see the movie Lincoln yet?
Yes.
Okay. You know, I can understand everything you're saying. It's really visionary,
Right.
and it kind of sounds like what an abolitionist was saying in the North in 1820. But even if it's much a different world, my point is this. California may be all for it. She asked you, who's the we? My question is, these 35 other states who suck off of us like that and have done so joyously and liberally for the past 35 years, why are they going to let go?
Great question. Great question. Here's the answer. First, I want to say this is subnational sovereignty. This is not secession. This is not the Civil War. The Civil War was evil and disgusting. This is a system of government that 25 nations around the world currently operate with and have great relations with their home nations. Make that clear. The answer to your question is that it is an assumption by Californians that America will fight to hold on to the state. Don't take my word for it. Again, I have a 50-page section in the book talking about America's real opinion of this. How many of you have heard the phrase land of fruits and nuts? Yeah, you heard that, right?
Tell about the latest LA interview we got.
Oh yeah, if you type in LA Daily News, comma, Marcus Ruiz Evans, I just had a positive book review in LA Daily News. Glenn Beck. Everybody know who Glenn Beck is? He was a Fox News commentator, very popular. So, 2 years ago, we had forest fires. 500 homes burned. Firefighters dead, burned alive. People maimed, scarred for life. Glenn Beck goes on air and he says, a bunch of people who hate America lost their homes today. They aired that throughout the year. He was never in trouble. There was no protest campaign. Nobody got upset. It is okay to make fun of dead Californians. Let's take another one. Everybody know George W. Bush, right? Who has heard of Jerry Falwell? The Reverend Jerry Falwell, major political contributor for George W. Bush. So, on the official White House page, when George W. Bush was president, that is paid for with your tax dollars, a page was given to Jerry Falwell. Official White House website, official White House page, Jerry Falwell. Takes questions from callers. One of the callers asks the question, hey Jerry, if let's say a terrorist sneaks a bomb into San Francisco and blows it up and kills everybody, is that okay because California is evil? Jerry said, no, that's fine. That actually happened. Official White House webpage, George W. Bush, when he's talking about how the war on terror is our #1 thing. Now add up that comment with the fact that you didn't get your 9/11 security money for 5 years. You're the most vulnerable spot to terrorist attack, you got nothing. And somebody's joking about you being dead? Maybe they're connected. Let's take another one. Who's heard of Laura Ingraham? She's a radio host. She has publicly been saying, California, just leave. There's also another one, Joyce Kaufman, same thing. How many of you heard about the new CEO study that came out in the last 2 months? It was a survey of all CEOs across America. That was big news. It was published everywhere. In that official report, they have a CEO say, I am so sick and tired of California, they should just leave America. That's in the report, official CEO report that was national news. Now, George W. Bush makes jokes about California. Dick Cheney called us Marin County hot tubbers. Nixon made a joke about us. You go back to the 1880s, you have Teddy Roosevelt talking about how we're a bunch of weirdos and we're not like the rest of America. His quote was, California's west of the West. That was fancy old world talk for, you're strange, you're not like us. So you have people joking about bad things happen to us. You have no security money. You have us being milked. You have radio hosts saying that we don't like you. You have official reports where they're saying leave. At most, you're going to find a divided America on this, where a big chunk of them are saying, go. We don't like you. We don't want you. We never thought you were like us. Leave. And a couple of them aware of the gigantic financial contribution that we give. But here's the thing. They're not aware. How many times have you heard that we're the land of welfare and giving things away and we're spend happy and we have no fiscal discipline and we're just bleeding hearts and we give all this stuff away? That's from the 35 states in the South and Midwest talk that crap on you, and yet you pay the money to them for 30 years. They are not aware that you're paying their welfare bill. Type in, America hates California. Don't take my word for it. Type it in, any search engine. You will find pages of results from average Americans talking about just their opinion about us. They don't view us as the same. This goes back to the 1880s, it goes back to the 1860s, it goes back to 1500s. We're fundamentally different. We've been seen as different. This goes on. At the bare minimum, there is not going to be anything like a united front of America saying, oh, please don't leave, we love you, California, and the 30 years of us talking trash on you, that was just a joke. Not going to happen. Don't take my word for it. Everything's thoroughly documented. The book's 500 pages. I have a 30-page reference section that was specifically commendated by San Francisco Book Review, and they said that my idea is radical, but well documented. Next question?
I have one.
Yes, please.
How do you expect to get the nations of the world to agree to have California as the next Switzerland?
Great question. So I'm going to put it like this. Do you guys know who Yao Ming is? Chinese basketball player, very tall. Yao Ming has started his own company, selling California wines to China, because he believes that China has a good impression of California and knows about our wines. And guess what? His business is booming. He didn't advertise. He just said, I got California wines. Chinese people went in droves for it. China knows about us. India knows about us. Russia knows about us. Europe, America. Everybody already knows about California. We just aren't marketing ourselves. We already have a brand name. We already have a market segment. We have not put our name out there in the running. The Russian ambassador, the Prime Minister of Russia, came to Silicon Valley, met with Silicon Valley heads, said this is a great example, flew right back to Russia, didn't stop anywhere in the rest of America. British Prime Minister Tony Blair came out specifically to California to talk to Schwarzenegger about climate change. Left, went right back to England, didn't stop in the rest of America. We have multiple foreign dignitaries who come just here, just for what we got. They know who we are. We're not going to have to work very hard selling ourselves once we announce that we're in the market for this business. Also, given that nobody can compete with us. You need a country that has the 7 superpowers living together peacefully for over 100 years. You cannot just put them together. We have the proof of what we're talking about. We've been doing it. We've done it. No one's remotely close. And when we present this argument to the world that we are the salvation for a situation that none of them are talking about and that's horrible, well, I think we have our advertising already marketed. Any other questions? Yes, please.
I remember when I took economics, I remember a professor saying that we were the food basket of the world.
Yes.
So then, are you foreseeing then that if we do our farming industry correctly, that we could be marketed that way and providing different food sources and market it correctly instead of, I guess, what is it that the farmers get, those surpluses or whatever?
Yeah, so great thing. California's economy is about 25 to 40% directly linked to the international market. The average US state is 5%. So when we're dealing with issues and we're saying, and Schwarzenegger goes to Asia and makes trade deals, Washington doesn't approve them. Not important. They're not thinking about it. It's important to us because almost half our economy is based upon it. While a tiny fraction of other states. Other states could not care about the world market and be fine. If we do that, we go into automatic recession. No other state is as close to us to the international market. And here's why it's key. Governor Schwarzenegger, when George W. Bush was president, both were in the same party, went to them and said, I have these trade deals. 150,000 new jobs here in California. George Bush sat on it for 5 years. Didn't approve it. Unfortunately, the current president has done the exact same thing. 150,000 new jobs. We're in the middle of recession. We are the worst hit state in all of this recession. Nothing. Both presidents are very different. Total different political ideologies. Exact same reaction to California because we are internationally linked and the rest of America is not. We're not allowed to maximize our economy. Anything remotely close to maximizing our economy. If we actually had the freedom, and I'm not talking about full freedom, everything but the military and the dollar. We could make those trade deals. We could design them for our markets, we could have new jobs, and we could start growing by trillions of dollars. We're simply not allowed to do that. You can come up with whatever great idea you want. Schwarzenegger went over there, worked out the deals, fixed the kinks, had the contract signed. It's sat for 10 years. Type in Schwarzenegger. He has a video where he's complaining about the first president and then the second president, exact same wording. Yes, we're losing out on hundreds of billions of dollars because we're not allowed to maximize our economy because we have to get permission from a bunch of people who are not concerned about the world market, are not connected to it, and completely ignorant about it. It's going to be 10 more years. We're going to have other trade deals that just aren't going to happen. And there will be other people without jobs who could be employed today.
Now,
Yes, please.
aren't we considered the 5th largest economy in the entire world?
Absolutely.
Well, we were,
Just our state.
right?
We fluctuate.
Yeah.
No,
Fifth
it's like
to
the
eighth.
6th now,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Instead of
Ninth,
the
last
5th.
time I heard,
But we could be number one. Switzerland is the richest country in the world because of the negotiation nexus. We can do that. And then we'd effectively be recession-proof, which means your kids and your grandkids will never go through what you're going through ever. Yes, please.
This People's Initiative for the 2014 ballot.
Yeah.
On a mechanical level, someone else asked the question, is it something that's actually something that we can self-initiate? I mean, don't we have to kind of get some kind of not authority, but recognition or go ahead from?
You do have to get 25 signatures to get an initiative process so that you can have it further on, but that's relatively low entry cost. The problem is getting the signatures from when it's allowed to be on the ballot till when people vote on it. That you need organization and money, and that's why the nonprofit corporation is being developed by other people so that we can get the money and the organization to be able to eventually do that.
Okay, and the second part of the question is, I didn't hear you mention the word union once.
Right.
But and I asked this question at the last meeting, why is California so counter-trend to the rest of the country in terms of its respect for unions? It's the way it voted on the 30 and the 32 and blah, blah, blah. Do you see the unions as being vital to this initiative?
Yeah, I think you answered the question yourself. I got done saying California's different, and you just said that California supports unions not like the other states. So if California was allowed to do more of its own thing, what's going to happen? More union support. You're going to have less fights with other people in other states fighting against the union. And you'll only have a fight within this state. You know, we have initiatives and we have elections and other states get money to specifically swing our elections. We had the Prop 8 gay marriage vote. that would have passed. It would have been legal for gay people to get married. Utah got together $30 million and pumped it directly into this election. They don't live here.
Where do they get that money? Oh, how come?
49 other states who don't like crazy Californian ideas, who aren't ready for things that we think we're ready for. Yeah, climate change. Louisiana got $50 million to specifically stop our climate change legislation. We have other states getting involved in our issues and they do not live here. That would stop. And stupid debates would stop. You'd have more rights for people and more understanding because that is our natural California understanding. And you would not have to fight with the tendencies of 49 other states, which as you said are counter-trend, on the battles we're doing now. I think I gotta wrap it up. But please, there's the book titles at the bottom of the page, California's Next Century 2.0. If you type in Marcus Ruiz Evans, California's Next Century 2.0, videos of speaking at 30 California cities, book reviews, articles pop up. If you're at all interested in this idea or possibly making it happen, please email me. I love the conversation, and I'm only trying to get this idea out there. I want to say that. I'm not saying we should do this. I'm saying we should talk about this. I've given this speech at 30 cities. People are not aware they're losing $120 billion a year. They're not aware that they pay federal income taxes for border, national security, and natural emergencies, and they lose that money. Let's at least have that conversation. Thank you.